Georgia. Good to be here with you this afternoon. And I really want to thank Pooja. She's done a great job organizing this event. And she's been So it's been great getting to know the group here with Georgia Gov Interactive. They've got a lot of great things going on, and they're a wonderful resource. So I wanted to start off by showing you the Access GA website that's been mentioned a couple of times today. We actually have two different URLs. I'm gonna go to the more up-to-date one. We changed our name. So the best way to get there is accessga.org. And I want to point out two things. We do have a webinar tomorrow afternoon, Tools and Strategies for Website Accessibility. It ought to be really great. It's at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon with Janet Sylvia of the USG Web Accessibility Group, and she's really great. If you're unable to attend, that we are going to record it, and we will post it and make it available at this Access Georgia website. But if you can attend, you could register here. The other thing, Joy mentioned some of the features of this website. I wanted to show you that you can sign up to subscribe to our mailing list here as well. Right here in the middle, just type in your email and then it will give you a form, and you'll be added to our mailing list. And we have a monthly newsletter that we have been distributing with some really great resources. So I think you might find some things of value. We have started including some short videos, including the one you saw earlier with John Rempel navigating the website. We used that in the last issue. We have a video of Liz demonstrating Dragon Naturally Speaking that will be coming up in our next issue that's coming out this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Real soon, we'll be sending that out. Also wanted to show you, if you click on the wiki link, we have all kinds of resources here. Joy mentioned them. We've got lots of things for you to explore. Web accessibility basics, content accessibility. That's what I'll be focusing on today. But there are a lot of checklists, a variety of different things that you can find here. And please come visit this site. I think you'll find some useful resources. I did want to show you as well, we do have links to our archived newsletters. We have our September issue featured Mike, and we had some great information in our September issue, the focus on what is accessible ICT. So please visit the site. There are a lot of good resources there. Okay, we'll switch over now. Tips for more accessible documents. We're just going to focus on, I'm going to point out some of the main features of accessible documents. And then we'll jump in and we'll look at a Word document and kind of see it in action. Show you how to set up some of those accessibility features. As we've been talking about today, when you are designing your websites, when you're writing your content, you do want to consider users with a variety of abilities and needs, right? So we've already been focusing on this, but we want to be thinking about all users, including aging users, users with motor disabilities, and in Georgia, for AMAC, we provide students with accessible textbooks. Our largest group of students, is that me? Am I doing that? Okay, right. The largest group of students that we do serve who require alternative textbooks are students with learning disabilities. So that is a very large group out there. So accessibility is, it's not just for screen reader users. They need it the most, They're not going to have access to the information if the website and your content is not formatted in an accessible way. So it's a requirement. But other users really benefit from accessible content, accessible websites as well. Mike touched on universal design. You do want to design for all users. It just makes sense to build accessibility in from the start. Joy mentioned ramps. Curb cuts are often examples that are brought up. When you think about universal design, the curb cut was designed as an accessible access for someone who uses a wheelchair, but we all benefit from it. We benefit people who have strollers, people who are have laptops or carrying luggage. We all benefit from that. Captioning is another example that at various times we may all benefit from seeing the captions. If we're in a class and there's a lecture, somebody speaking, and we have a PowerPoint, and we're able to view the text and hear it, it's really beneficial for all of us. I know I have viewed some webinars, and they were captioned, and maybe I'm listening and I didn't quite, I missed a piece of information, but if I glanced back up and I looked in the captions, there was the information that I missed. So that's another example of something that we think of for accessibility purposes that really benefits a large number of users. Also, it makes it easier to navigate a document if it's designed with accessibility features. It's easier to search. It's easier to export to other platforms. It's easier to view on a mobile device if it's been formatted properly. So you just want to build it in and make it part of your workflow. So what does make a document accessible? Well, first of all, it does work with assistive technology. Screen readers do rely on the document markup language in order to navigate, and I just have a list of some of the main types of screen readers and some other assistive technology. JAWS, you may have heard of that one. That is probably the most widely used screen reader out there. Stands for Job Access with Speech. That's what JAWS acronym means. NVDA is an open source screen reader. That is, you could go download it, install it on your own computer if you wanted to get familiar with using a screen reader. Window Eyes is another one that recently was made free. So that's another free one to use. And then, of course, magnification, text enlargement. Keyboard access, that is critical. That's an important part of an accessible document. Text-to-speech software, which is a little different. Carolyn and Liz demonstrated or showed you some examples of text-to-speech. Usually, text-to-speech is used more by someone who maybe has a learning disability, who wants to be able to listen and read and view the text at the same time. And then we've got assistive technology that's becoming mainstream. VoiceOver is available on the iPad and iPhone. I don't know if you've tried to turn it on, but I know it's just been a wonderful resource for individuals who have visual impairments or are blind or have low vision. They love VoiceOver. It's really easy to use. And then there are a lot of new apps for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up and out that's inexpensive, that's going to allow individuals to view captions easily and also kind of robotic sign language, on their computers. So there's a lot of interesting things out there. So I mentioned the markup language. I know some of you are working on the web pages, right? You're the authors, content authors of the web pages. The main thing I wanted to point out about the markup language is there are similarities. Once you understand the standards and the main points regarding creating accessible documents and websites, it applies to a number of different formats, which is great. So you don't have to learn something new necessarily, from a website accessibility. You can take what you learned there and also apply it to Microsoft Word documents and to PDFs. So this example, you can see that there is a HTML, then heading. There's a title, the University of Georgia, but if you look down, there's a H1, University of Georgia. So that information is marked up as a heading level 1. If you look over in the PDF, there's also a heading 1. And it works in the same way. and then we're going to look at the Word doc and see if we add a heading level 1 there, it's also going to give us a similar type of document structure that's important for accessibility. And here's the other thing I would like you to think about. The screen readers rely on the markup language, but here is how a user who is navigating a website would use the markup language, what they're able to do, and I kind of want to give you an example. Think about you as a sighted user. If you go to a website like the New York Times, for example, you go there and let's say you see the information, but it was just presented to you as a block of text. There were no visual cues, nothing that stood out as enlarged visual cues showing you what was the title. There was nothing that showed you where the information, the subheadings were located. There was no way for you to skim through the document and identify what was important. Instead of images, you saw big X's. You had no idea what was there. That's the type of an experience that an individual who's using a screen reader, if they go to a website that is not marked up properly, or they have a Word document that has no accessibility features added to it, they still may be able to get some of that information, but think about it, they have to listen to all of it. They can't skim through it the same way that a sighted user could, looking for visual cues. So that's what headings do. Adding the headings allow the screen reader user to navigate by headings and identify, all right, this is what's important here, and go down and find subheadings and identify where they want to be and find their way back. And if they come back to the document another time, easily find information that they saw the first time they were there. So that's how that works. And there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts that users of screen readers use, and they'll just bring up the headings initially so that they can navigate through rather than going through the entire document. They can also bring up all of the images if they needed to. They can bring up all of the hyperlinks, and that's why it's really important to not have click here, read more, because they're listening to a long list of hyperlink, 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 hyperlink. If they all say the same thing, there's no way for them to identify where they're going. So accurate labels are really important, but that's why you don't want to have click here. So a couple of things about that. Now, as I was saying, the standards are the same. They apply across all of these different formats. The techniques are similar. So once you know you want to format your heading level 1, once you know where to look, you can kind of look for it in another application. And it works across Word docs, PDFs, EPUB, HTML, even in other types of online newsletters and email distribution platforms. Like we use MailChimp to send out emails to large groups of lists. Well, those same features are in there. I can use my same headings. I can add alt text. Once I know what's important and what I need to add for accessibility, I can do that in all of the different programs. Dreamweaver, in Drupal, you can do it. It's just all across various platforms. So the main features of accessible documents. First of all, you need to have text. Can't be an image. And that becomes a problem when you make a copy. Let's say you have something that is accessible to begin with, electronic copy of something, but you print it, somebody prints it out, and then printing it makes it less accessible, right? If you then need to distribute it by handing it out to someone. But then the other problem is if you copy it on a copier and save it as an attachment and send it to someone, unfortunately it's not going to be an accessible copy. It's going to be an image. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, I kind of touched on that, and Joy already touched on a lot of that as well. So one of the key features that you want to make sure that you do is use the built-in tools in your authoring software. In Microsoft Word, you're going to use the styles to add headings. Now, I kind of blame Microsoft. Microsoft really could have helped us out by making everything fully, out there and designing their program so that it was easier to create accessible documents from the start. I think they have added features. They're doing a good job of making sure of trying to put it out there, but it's still kind of a little bit hidden. So I think if they would have set things up so that the direct formatting was a little bit hidden, or when you did enlarge something, if it asked you, do you want this to be a heading? They could do some other things that could make it a little bit easier. But other programs, iBooks Author, you can also add styles to your headings. If you use Adobe InDesign for publications, you can import a styled Word document, or you can map your styles to PDF tags. Okay, Microsoft does have an accessibility checker now that they've built into Word 2010 and Word 2013, and it's really great. I'll show you a little bit about that, where you can find it, and that's something that you want to use to just kind of flag and look for possible errors and warnings. Now, another key is that you want to export your accessible source files to accessible PDFs. So a PDF can be very accessible depending on how you create it. So if you have, if your source document is accessible and you've added all of the accessibility features, including your headings, including alt text, including your hyperlinks, when you export it, then all of those features will then also be in your accessible PDF. And you can even include bookmarks as well. So that's good to know. And let me show you in just a moment where you do that. Okay, so we're going to take a look now at how we would accomplish some of these things in Word. And this will be Word 2013, which I've never used before. So let's just throw that out there. Okay. I think I will start by showing where you can find the accessibility checker. Hopefully it's in the same place. Oh, no, I'm already out. So hold on one moment. Okay, it's not there. I'm going to tell you where you find it. Otherwise, you go to File, check for accessibility. File, share, check for accessibility. It was on the slide that I just showed you. Probably many of you are using 2013, Word 2013. How many people are using Word 2013?
2010.
Some of you are. Okay, how about Word 2010? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I need to get 2013 installed on my computer, and I'm planning on doing that soon, tomorrow, so that I have access to both. All right, come back to that. However, some of the other things are going to be similar. Here it is. Here it is. Okay, check for issues. All right? So you check accessibility. There are other things you can do. Has anyone stumbled upon this in the past? Have you stumbled upon this check for issues? I know it's kind of hidden. They could bring it out and make it easier to find. All right, so you can check for accessibility. Let me run it. And it's really good, though. Once you know it's there, it works really well. It breaks up the inspection results. Come in a couple of different categories. You've got errors, things you definitely need to fix. These are missing alt text, no header row specified in the table. So those are errors. And then warnings, unclear hypertext, objects not in line with the picture. But let me show you what it does. It will allow you to click on the error message and go to the problem area. It also tells you why to fix it. It tells you alternate text helps readers understand information presented in pictures and other objects. And then it even tells you how to fix it, which is really good. Select and fix each issue listed above to make this document accessible for people with disabilities. Now, in Word 2010, it does show you exactly right there. It gives you the steps, what you need to do. Now, I wanted to show you this. This is an example of an image. So it's not text. And how can I tell? You know, you just click on it. I can't select it with my cursor, so it's not text. So it would be better, rather than adding alt text to an image like that, it'd be better to just format it in a way that it already is text. So this next selection down below, this is text, so I can highlight it. And I could format it in a similar fashion, but leave it text. So try to have as much text available in your document as possible. Try not to convert text into images. Okay, so this one is missing alt text. So I can right-click on it, choose Format Picture, and try to find where my alt text box should be. And they moved it. All right, they've moved it. I'm going to spend some time finding out where it should be. All right, let's see here. This tells me read more about making it accessible. Text box, no, alt text. Okay, cool, there it is. I want to include my alt text description in the description box. I don't need to have a title and a separate description because that's too much information. When you are viewing an image, you're going to look at it and decide what is the purpose of this image, as a sighted user. Do I need to stop and spend time here? Maybe no. But what is the purpose? And that's what you want to do when you are writing alt text. You want to think about what is the purpose. If it is something that is more kind of visual and it's just for a visual representation, but not for conveying information. When you're on a website, there's a way to deal with that, and you can add null alt text, and the screen reader will skip it. So Word, unfortunately, right now doesn't have a way to do that, but you could add some short alt text. So I'm just going to, and you do want to be short with it, but you do want to convey the exact same information. I don't need to describe what they're wearing, nothing like that. What is the purpose? What type of information is in this image? So I should put more in this one, but I'm going to move on. So, all right, I can close out of here. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down, and I want to show you a couple of things about the headings. Something else that Mike, I'm very glad that he brought up earlier, is that when you're making something accessible, it doesn't mean you need to make it really plain. It doesn't mean it can't also be designed in a visually pleasing manner. It can be. So let's say when you add your headings, and I do have a couple of headings already built in, and a way to check to see if there are headings is go to View, Navigation pane, and then it shows me my headings. One of my headings is Add Alt Text to Images, and those are other headings that I have in here. Use list styles for numbered. Use table styles. Those are my headings. Heading level 1 and then heading level 2. So it's a document map. So you might be familiar with that from the document map. So it also, when you add your headings, it makes it easier for users to navigate as well with a document map. You can also create your table of contents in your document by using your headings. So that's another reason to style your document with your built-in tools. Okay, so go out of that. Go back to home. Okay, so I have my styles up here in the top, and I want to add some heading levels to this document. If I click within, I identify what I need to make into a heading, use accessibility standards. Right now it's normal text, but I'd like to make it a heading level 1. So if I choose heading level 1, oh, you know what? I think it's nice. I think what it does in this one, it doesn't automatically change it to the default. But I wanted to show you. You probably have noticed if you used the headings before that when you add the headings, it does change it to whatever the default heading style is. If you want to use your own font size and font style, and you can do that. And you do that by right-clicking on the heading and choose Update Heading to Match Selection. Okay, so you don't have to use the default headings that Microsoft has in here, but they do have a lot of built-in choices. But if you have an older document, let's say maybe a brochure that someone has already added visual headings, but they're not structural headings, and you want to go back and remediate it basically and make it more accessible, you can do that by selecting the headings and then right-clicking in the heading. There we go. So it's changing to the default heading right there. Now, if I don't want that, and I want to use my own formatting, update heading 2 to match selection, which is really, really useful. Okay, a couple of other things that I wanted to focus on. The hyperlinks. That'll be the last part that I focus on here. And this is something that is you're probably pretty familiar with this. If you want to add context to your hyperlink, then you select the text or type in the text that you want to display. All right here, I'm going to make this hyperlinks. Okay. Okay, so instead of using that long URL, and think about that too, if a screen reader needed to read out all of the, the URL, it's not very useful. But it is more useful than click here, read more, that type of thing. So I'm going to select my text, and I'm going to insert my hyperlink, which has moved to another place. Links. Cool. Insert my hyperlink, and I would paste in, I'm just going to put, okay, you're probably pretty familiar with that. So you want to make sure that you do that. Now, another problem, but it's less of an error, but it can be a problem, is spacing, adding white space around images. Sometimes that can be really frustrating, but rather than return, hit enter, and just add blank lines would be read out to a screen reader, and it would say blank, 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 blank. And if there are a lot of blank lines, then the individual may think, all right, there's no more information here. I've reached the end of the document. And they may just stop, and not get to other important information that you've included. So you can, and there are various different programs have ways to do this, but you can select your object and go to paragraph, and you can adjust your spacing this way. Instead of using those blank lines, adjust it with your built-in tools. So I can change this. Let's say I want more white space. I'm going to make it, let's say, that much white space. Okay, so that's another way to design my page visually without adding extra junk information. And that's important too with images. It's really important to have alt text, but it's also important that you don't have extra junk in your images. You want your image, the names of your images, to be appropriate. This could be tools icon. If I name it that, and I don't have alt text, the screen reader might read the name of that file instead, which might be pretty useful. But if it was just a long string of numbers, or the path where it was saved on my computer, then that's going to be kind of, extra garbage that somebody using a screen reader would have to just listen through. So not only is alt text important, but accurately, appropriately naming your images. Let's see, the other thing I wanted to show you is saving your files as PDFs. So it's probably way different. Okay, create PDF. Okay, so this is where it's important. You want to look at your options. Click on the options. Once you choose Save as Type PDF, click on Options, and you want to make sure that you're including non-printing information. So if I click in here, create bookmarks using headings, now all of my headings that I created in that Word doc, when I export over to the PDF, those are going to be bookmarks that can be there for navigation. I want to make sure that I have the document properties. That's the metadata. That's another thing you want to take a look at. You want to make sure that you are accurately naming your file in your properties section. It's easier for someone to find it. But this is really important right here. Document structure tags for accessibility. Make sure you click on this, click OK, and I guess it wants me to publish it. Now that PDF will have all of the same accessibility features. It should have, there are the bookmarks, which I didn't clearly add. There's my alt text. So, and if we wanted to get into it and look at the tags, we could look at the tags as well. And the tags are important for accessibility. But if you create it in Word and you have structured it properly and you export it, you can feel pretty good about your tags that you have now created an accessible PDF. Okay, those are the main things that I wanted to touch on. Anyone have any questions specifically to the Word docs?
I have a question.
Yes.
How did you get to the accessibility checker?
Okay, yes. That is when you go to save your document or look under File. And let me find my way back. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the PDF. Let me go back. Okay. It's under File. Down here, Inspect Document, Check for Issues. And when you click on Check for Issues, you can check accessibility.
My Word version only has Inspect Document, so I'm not sure where the check accessibility is. And I know I've used the check compatibility one, or at least I think it runs automatically, but I don't see the check accessibility.
Do you have Word 2007 maybe, Office 2007?
I may,
That's
yeah.
probably what it is. It's only available in Word 2010 and 2013,
okay.
So that might be the issue.
Okay.
So that's a reason too that you want to, see if there are ways to upgrade to the newer version, since there are some, advantages to doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you use any HTML page using Word, like what you just showed us, or does it have to be a doc?
I'm sorry, I don't totally understand.
Well, you were checking for accessibility.
Yeah.
You have hundreds of HTML pages.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that accessibility checker is strictly for Microsoft Office documents. You can use it for PowerPoint though, and you can use it for Excel. And it's really great for PowerPoint too. It will identify some issues. PowerPoint has a different set of issues. Reading order can be a problem. So it's only for Microsoft products. But what you can use is the tool that Joy showed you, Wave, and that is an excellent one. You could just type in the URL for the website. You go to the Wave site, type in the URL, and it's going to generate a report for you. And it's useful. And it's really good for sharing information, kind of doing a first pass and looking at, well, what are the headings?
Yeah.
Do we have alt text?
Very old
Yeah.
HTML pages,
Yeah.
and some new ones.
Mm-hmm.
We have a mix.
Yeah, exactly, and probably most people do. So yeah, that's a good way to get started, and that's a good way to share the results of your, that type of report with other people, and say, hey, here are the main things that we want to start on too. It can seem really overwhelming if you think we need to make everything accessible. Yes, that is your goal. You want to do that. But if you start off by making sure you have appropriate headings, adding alt text, adding the accessibility statement, those types of things, that will get you moving in the right direction. And that is an excellent place to start. Yeah.
Accessibility statement.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean?
Yes, Joy mentioned that earlier. Let's take a look here.
Maybe GTAs.
Yeah. Let's see if we just go to there is an accessibility statement. I may have to do a search maybe.
At the bottom of the page, it's got accessibility.
Accessibility, yep.
Which is where you see a lot of those.
And what it does, it shows that the agency's commitment to accessibility. And it
Okay.
states that, the agency is making sure that you're creating an accessible website. And then a lot of times it is useful too to have a contact. So if individuals do experience any problems, they know who to contact. In one of our last newsletter that we sent out, we do talk about accessibility statements, and we have some additional resources for writing accessibility statements. And that's on our Access GA website under newsletters. A whole article about accessibility statements. You're welcome.